What began as a standard promotional interview for Cruise's new action film quickly descended into chaos when Kimmel's increasingly hostile questioning crossed a line, ending with security escorting a furious Cruise from the studio. The atmosphere in the studio was electric from the moment Tom Cruise stepped onto the set. The audience erupted in applause as the superstar, known for his unwavering professionalism and high-energy persona, bounded onto the stage with his trademark enthusiasm. Kimmel's demeanor, however, seemed off from the start. Rather than his usual playful banter, the host appeared irritable and confrontational. "Thanks for coming, Tom," Kimmel said with what viewers later described as a dismissive tone as the applause died down. "I see you're still doing your own stunts. Must be nice to have that kind of control over a production." Cruise, maintaining his composure, smiled and nodded. "It's important to me to give audiences authenticity. When they see something incredible on screen, I want them to know it's real." "Real, huh?" Kimmel retorted, leaning forward with an unusual intensity. "Let's talk about what's real. Your new movie's budget is reportedly north of $200 million. Don't you think that's excessive when people are struggling to make ends meet?" The audience's awkward silence was palpable. Cruise shifted in his seat, clearly caught off guard by the hostile line of questioning during what was supposed to be a promotional appearance. "Well, Jimmy, these productions employ thousands of people and generate billions in economic activity. The film industry creates jobs and—" Right, Kimmel interrupted, rolling his eyes dramatically. "The classic trickle-down Hollywood defense. But I'm curious about something else that's been making the rounds online." At this point, producers could be seen frantically gesturing from off-camera, but Kimmel appeared determined to continue his aggressive line of questioning. "Your co-star mentioned in an interview that you demanded the entire crew follow a strict regimen during filming. Some might call that controlling behavior. Care to comment?" The audience collectively held their breath. Cruise's smile tightened, but he remained composed. "I have high standards for our productions because audiences deserve our best effort. Safety and excellence go hand in hand, Jimmy. I'm passionate about delivering quality entertainment." "Passionate, controlling, tomato, Kimmel quipped, drawing nervous laughter from the audience. "Speaking of controlling, let's talk about your reputation for micromanaging directors. Do you ever just let them do their jobs?" Cruise's publicist, visible at the edge of the stage, began shaking, her head vigorously. The interview was clearly veering far from the agreed-upon talking points. "That's not accurate, Jimmy," Cruise replied, his voice level but firm. "I collaborate closely with directors. We're partners in creating something special for audiences." "Partners," Kimmel repeated skeptically. "Is that what Christopher McQuarrie would call it? Because I heard—" "I think McQuarrie's results speak for themselves," Cruise interjected, his smile now completely gone. "We've made incredible films together that audiences love." Kimmel leaned back, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "Let's change gears. Your personal life has always been fodder for tabloids. How do you feel about being the punchline of so many jokes?" The studio fell deadly silent. Cruise took a deep breath, his jaw visibly clenching. "I came here to talk about the film, Jimmy. I think your audience would rather hear about that." "Oh, but my audience loves the real stuff," Kimmel pressed, ignoring the increasingly frantic signals from his producers. "Like how you reportedly insisted on rewriting major portions of the script just weeks before shooting. That must have been a nightmare for everyone involved." "That's simply not true," Cruise responded, his voice cooler now. "We had a collaborative process from day one. The entire team worked together to craft the best possible story." Sure, Kimmel said, waving his hand dismissively. "But let's be honest. When Tom Cruise suggests something, no one says no, right? That's the power dynamic at play." The atmosphere in the studio had transformed from excitement to uncomfortable tension. Audience members exchanged glances, sensing the interview had gone off the rails. I think you're creating a narrative that doesn't exist, Cruise said firmly. We're a team making films we're proud of. A team where one person calls all the shots, Kimmel countered. But hey, let's talk about something else that's been circulating. There are rumors that you— Jimmy? Cruise interrupted, his voice quiet but authoritative. I've always respected you as a host, but this interview isn't what we agreed to. I'm happy to discuss the film, the incredible work our team has done, the amazing stunts we've created, but I didn't come here for whatever this is. Kimmel's eyes narrowed. What's wrong? Can't handle a few tough questions? The public has a right to know about the real Tom Cruise, not just the carefully curated image your PR team puts out. The tension crackled between them. Off-camera, producers were now in full crisis mode. The commercial break should have happened 2 minutes ago, but Kimmel had barreled through the queue. You know what's interesting, Jimmy? Cruise said, his voice now dangerously calm. I've been on your show many times. I've always been respectful, engaged with your games, your bits. I've never once questioned your professionalism. But tonight, this isn't professional. This isn't even entertainment. It's just mean-spirited. The audience erupted in spontaneous applause, clearly siding with Cruise. Kimmel's face reddened as he realized he was losing the room. Mean-spirited? I'm just asking questions other people are too afraid to ask, Kimmel retorted, his voice rising. That's what a good host does. A good host creates a space where conversations can happen, Cruise replied. This isn't a conversation, Jimmy. It's an ambush. Kimmel leaned forward aggressively. Maybe you're just not used to people not worshipping at the altar of Tom Cruise. Maybe. We're done here, Cruise said, standing abruptly. The audience gasped collectively as the superstar unclipped his microphone. Thank you for having me, but I think it's best if I leave now. As Cruise turned to walk off the stage, Kimmel called after him. Running away from tough questions? That's not very mission. Impossible of you, is it? Cruise paused, and the studio fell so silent you could hear a pin drop. Slowly, he turned back to face Kimmel. You know what's impossible, Jimmy? Having a genuine conversation with someone who's already decided who you are before you walk through the door. I've spent decades in this industry treating people with respect. Crew members, directors, fans, and yes, talk show hosts. All I've ever asked for is the same courtesy in return. The audience burst into applause again, louder this time. Several people stood up. Oh, please, Kimmel scoffed, but his voice was nearly drowned out by the audience's reaction. Save the speech for your next movie. Cruise shook his head sadly. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, Jimmy. It clearly isn't an honest interview. As Cruise walked toward the exit, Kimmel's face contorted with anger. He stood up and pointed at Cruise's retreating figure. That's right, walk away. Show everyone who you really are. Security, make sure Mr. Cruise finds his way out. Apparently, he can't handle a real interview. 2 security guards appeared, moving toward Cruise, who stopped and turned once more, his expression a mixture of disappointment and resolve. I don't need an escort, Cruise said quietly, his voice somehow carrying through the now silent studio. I know my way out. The security guards hesitated, looking uncertainly between Cruise and Kimmel. The host's face had turned an alarming shade of red as he realized the audience was firmly on Cruise's side. Well, don't just stand there, Kimmel snapped at the guards. Make sure our guest leaves the building. Apparently he can't handle a little honesty. The audience erupted in boos. Someone shouted, You're the one who can't handle it, Jimmy. Kimmel's head whipped toward the voice. Oh, you want to join him? Be my guest. He gestured wildly toward the exit. The audience's reaction grew louder, with scattered calls for Kimmel to apologize. Cruise raised his hands, and remarkably, the audience quieted. Even in this moment of chaos, his star power commanded attention. This isn't about me, Cruise said calmly, addressing the audience directly. This is about basic respect and professionalism. I've been in this industry for over 4 decades. I've done hundreds of interviews. I understand that not every conversation will be friendly, but there's a difference between tough questions and whatever this was tonight. Kimmel scoffed loudly. Oh, spare us the lecture on professionalism. You know what's unprofessional? Walking off a show because you don't like the questions. Jimmy, called a voice from offstage. His producer, now physically on the set, trying desperately to salvage the situation. We need to go to commercial. Not yet, Kimmel shot back. I want to hear what else Mr. Hollywood has to say about professionalism. Cruise's publicist had also stepped onto the stage, phone pressed to her ear, clearly in crisis management mode. She tried to guide Cruise toward the exit, but he gently shook his head. I came here in good faith, Cruise continued, his voice steady. My team and your team agreed on the parameters of this interview. You chose to ignore that agreement. That's your right as a host, but it's my right as a guest to decline to participate in whatever personal vendetta you're pursuing tonight. The audience applauded again. A woman in the front row stood up, pointing at Kimmel. You owe him an apology. Others joined in, the calls for an apology growing louder. Kimmel's producer was now frantically signaling for cameras to cut away. Apologize? Kimmel's laugh was bitter. For what? Doing my job? For not being another fawning interviewer asking about how brave you are for doing your own stunts? Jimmy, his producer hissed urgently. Kimmel ignored him. You know what? This is my show. My show. He jabbed a finger into his own chest. And I'm tired of celebrities thinking they can control every aspect of their public image. The public deserves to know who you really are. And who am I, Jimmy? Cruise asked quietly. You've clearly made up your mind. Why don't you tell everyone? The studio was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. Kimmel seemed momentarily thrown by the direct question. You're a control freak, he sputtered finally. Everyone knows it. You micromanage everything. You demand special treatment. Have you ever worked with me, Jimmy? Cruise interrupted. What? It's a simple question. Have you ever worked with me on a film? Have you ever been on one of my sets? Kimmel shifted uncomfortably. No, but have you spoken with my current co-stars about their experiences working with me? My directors? The crew members? I don't need to, because I think you'd hear something very different from the narrative you're pushing tonight. Cruise continued steadily. I care deeply about every project I'm involved in. I work hard. I hold myself to high standards, and yes, I expect excellence from those around me. But I lead by example, and I treat everyone, from the director to the craft services person, with the same respect. The audience erupted in applause again. Cruise's publicist was now on the stage, whispering urgently in his ear. He nodded slightly but stood his ground. Look, Kimmel said, visibly struggling to regain control of the situation. Maybe I was a bit harsh, but you celebrities live in such a bubble. A bubble? Cruise laughed incredulously. Jimmy, I've filmed in over 30 countries. I've worked with thousands of people from every background imaginable. I spend more time talking to grip technicians and camera operators than I do other celebrities. Don't talk to me about living in a bubble. Sweat was now visible on Kimmel's forehead. The audience was completely behind Cruise, and the host knew it. His producer was frantically making a slashing motion across his throat. Cut to commercial. Now. Security, Kimmel called again, his voice cracking slightly. Please remove Mr. Cruise from the stage. The security guards looked profoundly uncomfortable but began moving toward Cruise again. The audience's reaction was immediate and hostile. Leave him alone! Jimmy's the one who should leave. This is ridiculous. The shouts echoed through the studio. Cruise's publicist was now physically trying to pull him toward the exit, but the actor stood firm. I'll go, Cruise said, his voice cutting through the chaos. But I want to say one last thing. He turned to face the audience directly. I've been incredibly fortunate in my career. I get to make movies that entertain people all over the world. That's a privilege I never take for granted. Every time I step onto a set, every time I do an interview like this, or what this was supposed to be, I remember that I'm here because audiences have supported my work for decades. That support means everything to me. And it's why I refuse to participate in something that's designed not to inform or entertain, but simply to tear someone down. The audience rose to their feet, applauding wildly. Kimmel stood frozen behind his desk, the situation completely beyond his control. "Cut to commercial," the producer shouted, no longer caring that his voice was being picked up by the microphones. "Cut now." But before the cameras could cut away, Cruise turned to face Kimmel one last time. "I hope next time I'm in town promoting a film, we can have a real conversation, Jimmy. I'd welcome that." With those words, he turned and walked toward the exit, ignoring the security guards who awkwardly fell in step beside him. The audience's standing ovation continued as he disappeared backstage. "And we're clear," a voice called out. The red lights on the cameras winked off, but the studio audience remained standing, their applause now mixed with calls for Kimmel to apologize. "Get them under control," Kimmel hissed at his producer as he yanked off his microphone. "And find me whoever prepped this interview. They're fired." "Jimmy," the producer said in a low voice, "you went completely off script. The prep wasn't the problem." "Are you serious right now?" Kimmel snapped. "Cruise made me look like a complete—" "You made yourself look bad," the producer interrupted, his professional demeanor finally cracking. "What the hell was that? We had agreed topics. We had a plan. That was Tom Cruise, for God's sake." Backstage, the situation was equally chaotic. Cruise's team had formed a protective circle around the star as they made their way toward the exit. Studio executives who had been watching the interview unfold in horror were now rushing toward them, apologizing profusely. "Tom, we are so sorry," one executive babbled, practically jogging to keep up with Cruise's determined stride. "I don't know what got into Jimmy tonight. This isn't reflective of how we treat our guests." "I know," Cruise said simply, pausing, briefly. "I've been on the show many times. This was different." The executive wiped sweat from his brow. "We'll make this right, Tom. Whatever you need." Cruise's publicist stepped forward. "What we need is to leave. Now." As they continued toward the exit, Cruise's phone buzzed incessantly. His publicist glanced at it and grimaced. "It's already hitting social media. Clips are going viral." A production assistant rushed up, holding out a tablet. "Mr. Cruise, I shouldn't be showing you this, but people are already posting videos from the audience." "Look!" Cruise hesitated, then took the tablet. The screen showed a Twitter feed exploding with clips of the confrontation, already gaining thousands of retweets. The hashtag #Kimmel'sTellCruise was trending, with Team Cruise rapidly outpacing Team Kimmel by a massive margin. "This is going to be a nightmare," the studio executive muttered. "Not for Tom," Cruise's publicist said firmly. He handled himself with absolute professionalism. Cruise handed the tablet back, his expression thoughtful rather than angry. "Thank you," he said to the production assistant, who nodded nervously before hurrying away. Meanwhile, back on set, the audience was still in an uproar. The floor directors was desperately trying to calm them before the show returned from commercial. "Ladies and gentlemen, please, we need to continue with the show. Please take your seats." "Why should we?" called one audience member. "After what we just saw." Backstage, Kimmel was being confronted by his senior producer and two network executives who had rushed down from their offices. "What the hell were you thinking?" one executive demanded. "That was Tom Cruise. Do you have any idea what this means for our relationship with not just him, but his entire agency? They represent half of Hollywood." Kimmel paced frantically. "He's just another celebrity who can't handle real questions. Why is everyone acting like I committed some crime?" "Because you ambushed him," the producer said flatly. This wasn't journalism, Jimmy. It was a hit job. And for what? Kimmel stopped pacing, his face still flushed with anger. You want to know why? Because I'm sick of these celebrities coming on my show, using me for promotion, controlling every aspect of the interview. Don't ask about this. Don't mention that. I'm a talk show host, not a puppet. That's the business, the executive said coldly. You know that. If you wanted to be Mike Wallace, you should have gone into news. The producer checked his phone and blanched. We've got bigger problems. Social media is blowing up and it's not in our favor. Boycott Kimmel is trending. Outside the studio, Cruise and his team had reached the exit. A small crowd of employees had gathered, watching silently as the superstar departed. Many looked embarrassed, some even apologetic. Just as Cruise pushed open the door, a voice called out from behind them. Tom, wait! Everyone turned to see Guillermo, Kimmel's sidekick, hurrying toward them. He stopped a respectful distance away, looking genuinely distressed. I just wanted to say, that was not right. What happened in there? Not right at all. I've worked with Jimmy for many years, but tonight, he shook his head, clearly struggling with his loyalty to Kimmel and his sense of what was fair. You have always been kind when you come here. Always make time for everyone. Take photos with the staff. I just wanted you to know, not everyone here feels the way Jimmy acted tonight. Cruise stepped forward and extended his hand. Thank you, Guillermo. I appreciate that. After Guillermo departed, Cruise turned to his team. Let's go. As they stepped outside, they were immediately met with camera flashes. Somehow, word had already spread, and paparazzi had assembled. Cruise's security team quickly formed a protective barrier as they moved toward the waiting SUVs. Tom, what happened in there? Shouted one photographer. Did Kimmel really throw you off the show? Called another. Cruise didn't respond, maintaining his composure as they reached the vehicles. Just as he was about to climb in, he paused, then turned to face the cameras. Tonight was unfortunate, he said calmly, but I hope everyone remembers there are hundreds of people who work on that show who had nothing to do with what happened. They deserve your continued support. With that, he ducked into the SUV, which pulled away from the curb, leaving the shouting paparazzi behind. Inside the studio, the situation was deteriorating further. Despite the floor director's best efforts, nearly a third of the audience had walked out in protest. Those remaining were subdued. The festive atmosphere of a late-night talk show completely evaporated. We have to cancel the rest of the show, the producer told Kimmel. We'll air a rerun. Are you kidding me? Kimmel exploded. And let Cruise win? No way. We're doing the show. With what audience? Look at them. The producer gestured toward the studio floor where more people were standing up to leave. Kimmel's phone rang. He glanced at it and grimaced. It's the network president. You'd better answer it, the executive said grimly. And I suggest you start thinking about what kind of apology you're going to make. By the next morning, the incident had exploded across all media platforms. Clips of the confrontation were playing on every news and entertainment show. Boycott Kimmel continued to trend, with celebrities and fans alike weighing in on the controversy. Cruise's publicist entered his hotel suite, where the actor was calmly eating breakfast while reviewing script notes for his next project. So, she said, dropping a tablet on the table, it's even bigger than we thought. Cruise picked up the tablet and scrolled through the headlines. Kimmel crosses the line. Cruise walks off after hostile interview. Late night low point. Kimmel's ambush backfires. Viewers pledge to boycott. Kimmel after Cruise confrontation. The network has issued a formal apology, his publicist continued. They're in damage control mode. Kimmel's been ordered to make a public apology on tonight's show. Cruise set down the tablet. Has anyone checked on his ratings? His publicist nodded. Early numbers show last night was a disaster. They lost viewers in droves after you left. And the film? She smiled. Publicity couldn't be better, actually. Pre-sales jumped overnight. People are buying tickets as a show of support. Cruise nodded thoughtfully. Not how we plan to promote it, but I'll take it. That evening, millions tuned in to Jimmy Kimmel Live. Many for the first time in years, curious to see how the host would address the previous night's debacle. The studio audience was notably smaller than usual. Kimmel walked out to tepid applause, his usual swagger replaced by a subdued demeanor. He took his place behind his desk and looked directly into the camera. "So, about last night," he began. "I owe an apology to Tom Cruise, to our audience, and to everyone who watched that interview. I crossed a line. What should have been a conversation about Tom's new film became something personal, and frankly unprofessional." He paused, looking genuinely uncomfortable. "I've been doing this show for many years, and I've always prided myself on creating a space where guests feel welcome. Last night I failed at that. Tom Cruise has been coming on this show for years, and he's always been nothing but gracious with his time, not just with me, but with everyone on our staff." The audience, initially cool, began to warm slightly as Kimmel's apology appeared sincere. "I've spoken with Tom personally today," Kimmel continued. "He was gracious enough to accept my apology, which is more than I deserved, and he's agreed to come back on the show in the future for a proper conversation about his work." Across town, Cruise watched the apology on his hotel room television, phone in hand. As Kimmel finished, Cruise's phone buzzed with a text from the network president. "Thank you for being the bigger man." Cruise set the phone down without replying. The incident had revealed something about the industry, something about how celebrity and media interacted that often remained hidden from the public. For all the glitz and glamour, there was often tension beneath the surface, a power struggle between those who created entertainment and those who covered it. In the days that followed, the controversy gradually subsided. Kimmel's ratings suffered temporarily but eventually stabilized. Cruise's film opened to record numbers, the publicity from the incident providing an unexpected boost. The industry took note of how Cruise had handled himself, maintaining his composure and dignity in the face of provocation. A month later, when another late-night host asked Cruise about the incident during a different promotional tour, he simply smiled and said, "Every interview is an opportunity, either to have a meaningful conversation or to learn something about yourself." That night, I think we all learned something. The host nodded thoughtfully. "And what did you learn, Tom?" Cruise's smile was genuine. "That sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away with your principles intact. Success isn't just about box office numbers or ratings. It's about being able to look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and know you did the right thing." As the audience applauded, the host leaned forward. "Well, we're certainly glad you didn't walk away tonight." Cruise laughed. "So am I." The Kimmel incident eventually became just another chapter in Hollywood history, but its impact resonated beyond a single night of television. It sparked conversations about respect, professionalism, and the sometimes tense relationship between celebrities and the media that covers them. And for viewers who witnessed it, it served as a reminder that even in the carefully choreographed world of entertainment, authentic moments of human drama could still break through. Moments that revealed character in ways no scripted performance ever could.